كنت احكي تليفون بعدين قلت في قنبله بالتليفون ضربت هيك ايدي بعدين اجى اشي حامد هيك على رقبتي وكله بلد انت يكراين
منيح اللي اجى هون يعني. Look, here is a very dangerous place.
Come here,
it can go stone wall. So it goes like that, through the wall, come back in her shoulder. هلا هون عندك كمان. مش بشرون.
And he was there when there was shelling of the refugee camp, and his leg was. He's got a break here and pieces and stuff. You know, that was it. It was 9 months ago. And Jadil, he was in his house and he got a dum-dum bullet in the leg and shattered his bone. So there's this funeral, right? So people are angry and they're shooting in the direction of the army base. But, you know, it's like shots of anger, like nothing that would
hit in the direction
or damage the tank.
Or sometimes in the enemy.
And then so you hear like boom, 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 and then the sound of the noise back, like this really low hum that just doesn't stop. And they're shelling all over Bejala, just shelling the residential houses. And I was standing on the top there, I was like completely shocked. And then they started shooting in my direction, so we had to like duck under a thing. But I could see that they were just totally. And there was like one man who was killed. Just outside the wall of the school. So I was really looking down, and then her nephew. That day was the day her nephew got his arm blown off, a 5-year-old boy. And there were 30 or 40 people injured that day and one man killed. And it was so disproportionate, like you could, it was... The International Solidarity Movement is kind of an umbrella organization for international organizations and international activists from all over the world that are concerned with the Palestinian cause. And since the beginning of the Intifada, we've been doing solidarity actions with the Palestinians. This is one of them. There was, Bejala has been shelled a lot since the beginning of the Intifada, supposedly as a reaction to gunmen shooting from here, even though sometimes there wasn't such shooting when Bejala was shelled, but even when there was, the response was completely out of proportion, and civilians were not taken into account, like were shelled. And these are, like, we're staying in civilian houses that have been shelled and in which people have been, in danger and sometimes wounded and killed. We heard that there was tanks being deployed around Bethlehem, and we wanted to try to come here and hopefully be a deterrent force for the Israeli army to, like, when they're shooting civilians, for them to know that there are also internationals here, and mostly just to put out a call to the international community that an international protection force was needed for people living under occupation. That's what we've been doing here.
Oh, it's absolutely devastating. I mean, I myself, at least personally, like, I can sit in a house and I can, if they're gonna shell, it may be scary, I may be afraid to lose my life, but I can take it. But it's not just what it's about. It's living underneath that fear for, since the beginning of the Intifada, almost 10 months now, and the way that it really affects people on a day-to-day basis, that is completely nerve-wracking, that is really difficult to deal with. I was fine when I got here. I was like, okay, I may be scared if something happens. By the time I went to sleep, I was all anxious and I was afraid to go to sleep. That's something completely different. I'm originally from Israel. I lived many years in the United States and I re-immigrated to Israel, so I'm Israeli American. I had certain perceptions, but I coming with a certain amount of knowledge that we came in here. There's an incredible amount of disproportionate violence and injustice and violation of human rights done here, and we knew that, and that's what we came to do something about it. Obviously, very different communities, and sometimes it's kind of interesting coming as internationals, as an outsider force, and trying to work along with Palestinians to deter them. But it's always been great. I think a large part of what we're doing this for is because we have found that in any actions that internationals or even Israelis, which some consider as internationals by fact of them not being Palestinians, whenever they involve in actions in Palestinians, there's the army is a lot more hesitant to do anything, and so we do act as a deterrent force, and that's really important to us. I knew a lot of what was happening. I didn't understand why, and I did not understand how unbalanced it is. I knew that technically the army does things as a response, but the way that the response works is not in any way proportionate to the amount of violence. Like, for example, a part of the siege or closure in certain towns allows there still to be a path for Palestinians to go around so they can get adequate medical care. That's theoretically speaking. If you find out the actuality of it, it cannot work. The Palestinians have to go and travel so far out of the way and travel in settler bypass roads that they are so afraid to go to. They never utilize that option, and people are never able to get the adequate care that they need to by the time they get to their destination. In here, for example, there's of course people shooting from houses. It does happen, but it's neither relevant nor direct at the places they're happening. Somebody could be shooting, and then they would shoot and then the IDF would shoot at the entire neighborhood. It's not reciprocal. It's not back and forth, and that's something I think that is largely missed in the media, and that's one of the things that I found out when I came here. The Israeli media really plays Beit Jala to have a row of houses of a certain number of people who are affected by this, who in fact is large amounts of the community and mainly innocent people.
The biggest change that I've overcome living here is realizing that this is not a battle between Jews and Palestinians. It's and I didn't separate Jews from the Intifada. I didn't separate them from the suffering of the Palestinian people. And I came here and I realized it's not. It's between Zionists and between Israelis. And that doesn't mean every Jew is a Zionist or every Jew is an Israeli. And, so that was the biggest difference for me, is just realizing that. And also you see it, I have family that write to me every day and say, what's going on? We don't see anything on TV. And I say, lots going on. People's homes are still being demolished. People are, the roads are still closed. People are stuck in their homes, can't travel. They're being bombed, they're being shelled. They're dying, and they don't hear a word about it in the States. But you hear about 3 settlers being killed, and that's splashed in the news for a week. We've had 5 times, Palestinians have had 5 times more casualties, just casualties alone, than Israelis, but you don't see the coverage, and yet we're the terrorists. I try to bring people in all the time. I go to Israel and I talk to people. I talk to just anyone that's tourist, Jews that are there to visit Israel. I talk to Israelis, and if they're curious about coming here, I bring them over, and I want them to see the situation for themselves. So that's part of how I'm trying to work with this the conflict. Is I want people to come over and I want them to see the truth, and if I'm the only person that's willing to do it, then that's my job. I have an obligation to the Palestinian people to help them as an advocate for the human rights.
You're an American citizen, right?
I'm an American.
Like a lot of the closure on the West Bank and Gaza, for example. In Gaza it's pretty strict, but the closure on the West Bank, like the checkpoints keeping Palestinians into 48, like everybody knows that people go around the checkpoint. Like there's usually a checkpoint and the path around the checkpoint. You know, I mean, there are cabs from Ramallah going to Jerusalem, those going directly through the checkpoint and those going around. So it's obviously not for security. Like there's no security, including like the closures on the villages. Okay, like if people can go over the hilltops, these blockades, then what kind of security? But it does keep, like the only people who cross those checkpoints are people who have to go to work, you know, who have to, like the regular people aren't going to cross over, like we're being separated. And I think that that's essential for the system to continue. I think another thing that I've realized is how paranoid we are as like the Jewish people, the Israelis, like just how deeply we're suffering from, you know, fear and sometimes, and when I ask myself like where that comes from, then sometimes I think that it's because of our history and like just, you know, collective trauma that's being projected on this situation from the Holocaust, from Europe, from whatever. And sometimes I think that it's because maybe deep down we know that we're sitting on somebody else's land. And so there's always this, in order to justify it, we have to like say, these people have to be different than us. Like if I'm sitting on somebody else's land in somebody else's house, I have to somehow unconsciously maybe, I have to justify it to myself and say, well, he's not like me. You know, he's something else, you know. And I think in any colonial society you get this fear of the natives, you know. And it's very similar, like this fear and the fear that you find in Israelis. Like the way the British would think about the black, you know, people that would come and like, it's the same kind of fear. Like, and because maybe somewhere you know that you know, he's got a reason to hate me. He's got a reason to want to come and kick me out of here. It's not, you know.
Tell this to your people, girl.
I try to see what they do.
Yeah. Exactly. No, I mean, but just...
No, but it's not that. It's like for a lot of people. I mean, I've been bringing people to the West Bank, like for. I mean, after I came, like about a year after, then I like trying to bring people, but. I don't know, what is it? It's difficult. I mean, I don't know why people don't want to know. Like, I mean, I know that it's like...
They're afraid. No, they're afraid, and they're afraid to come here. They are so afraid to come here. I mean, look at what's going on right now. It's getting harder and harder for me to go through checkpoints because it says I was born in Israel, or that I don't have a visa because I'm Israeli. They are trying everything they can to keep Israelis out, and the people believe
Israelis are staying out by themselves.
No, yeah, but that's because
rushing to come here.
No,
and they
that's
have to
right.
keep them out.
There is a strong belief, at least on my part, that part of the reason that of the closure and that they're trying to keep the people separated is to make sure that the Israeli people know, quote unquote, that those Palestinians are out to get them, and therefore they must stay away from them. And the closure is there for their security, that they're keeping them out of the occupied territories for their own good. That's a part of it. I tell people about coming here, and a lot of people want to come here, and they're scared. You know, a lot of people want to know what's going on, and they're really scared to come. They're like, well, what if we're well-meaning, but those terrorists are going to do something to us? You know, and those are completely innocent people.
You mean that the Palestinians are like the cannibals in Amazons? Okay,
No.
anybody comes inside, they are going man-eaters.
That's how they.
Yeah,
That's
this is the
what
way,
we're
yeah,
taught.
I know.
That's what we're taught to believe. That's what we're made to believe somehow. And it's like this. And it's like when you say tell out to your people, like yes, you know, I try, I want to. But it's like when you look at what I'm up against, like okay, my voice is my voice, you know, and it's up against okay, everybody's, you know, your people's fears and and it's like, I mean, finding out the truth is so painful. Like the process of finding out what was going on here for me, it's devastating. Not just for me, for a lot of people, like that have found out. It's devastating. It's like everything you ever believed, you know, about you, about your people, about, you know, like it's just, you know, like who you are. It's very difficult, and I know that a lot of people don't want to go through that. A lot of people just don't want to look beyond themselves and their lives. And the thing is that even no matter how loud my voice is, the voice of the media, the television, the radio, the constant pumping of the fear, constantly, every half hour news bulletin, and the lies that, the IDF, like I've been in villages where there's like a settler attack, on a village, and like, we call it like, reporters call the IDF, and the IDF are like, oh yeah, the Palestinians are throwing stones, we're shooting at their feet, and like, the constant, like, total, yeah, so, no matter, like, my voice is like this, and the voice of the machine, like, of the media propaganda machine over there, like, the IDF has got, a whole unit, the IDF spokesperson, it's a unit, it's soldiers working day and night to put out the information that they want put out, and, like, we've been working, day and night until I drop, like in the Intifada, to try to put out, but I don't have I get stuff out, we get this, we get stuff out, but compared to, I don't have a unit.
They end up on CNN and BBC and
we end up on CNN and BBC too, but we can do it once, and, and they're like,
it's even more frustrating when you go out there and you go to these political activities, you go to demonstrations, and for example, let's say it's a peace demonstration, we have 1,000 people, no one's throwing stones, no one's instigating, no one's coming near the soldiers, and all we want to do is free up a road, and next thing you know, we have tear gas and shock bombs thrown at civilians, people who are sitting on the ground and having these things thrown at them, and next thing you know, it ends up in the newspaper that one Palestinian was killed, several injured in attacks against Israeli soldiers, and so it's really frustrating because you try so hard and then it totally turns around in the media.